Thank you, Craig.
You're welcome.
That
Thank you,
was
Craig.
awesome. You didn't use your entire license.
I still have 7 mistakes left. Yeah, that's good. I'll use them later today.
That was awesome. Really, I enjoyed it. Thank you for going through all the details on the different levels of meditation, different stages, and I think that was excellent. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it was very interesting going through in fairly fine detail the chapters. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. There is a lot of other ancillary material out there on him, and I will include links to it if anybody's interested. But I'm just one of the results of looking at this more closely is I'm a lot more excited about, I just kind of stumbled on the DTO. There was a thing on Meetup, and 5 years ago, and I saw it and said, that looks interesting. So it was just kind of random chance that I happened upon the Dharma Teacher Order. But I am really grateful that it is in this tradition, because this tradition is, because it came from this foundation of, Mahayana Buddhism, Theravadan Buddhism. There's elements of Confucianism in there, and there's a lot of elements of Taoism in there. It is, I don't know, it's just, it suits me quite well. So I'm very happy about that. Fortuitous.
Yes. All right. So
I wonder how, I just want to ask a question. I wonder how your maps kind of interrelate to the ones that John presented us so masterfully in his presentation of the history, the first parts of the book that he educated. For me, it was a tremendous education on the history of Buddhism, and the Buddhism coming actually from Vietnam up to China. And so I'd like to hear from John, if at all possible, at some point, how, the maps for the distribution or diffusion of Buddhism kind of worked out. You don't have to, but it'd be
so
nice.
just if I could interject just briefly. So we were running a little over for the schedule. Discussion was on for 30 minutes. I guess I would suggest maybe doing 25 or so, maybe go to about 5 after the hour, and then another 5 minutes or so for announcements and sharing the merits. So is it okay with everyone if we perhaps go about 10 minutes over so we have enough time for discussion? Okay.
I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to have to leave a little bit early, but I just want to let you know I'm not.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tom. So yes, let's begin our discussion. I would suggest so I think maybe John will grace us with an answer to the question in a moment. And then after that, if we could perhaps give a little bow and unmute yourself, and another brief bow and remute yourself, if appropriate, when you're done sharing, if the discussion's done, but just bowing in, bowing out a bit to keep some flow to it. Thank you. John.
Jean Van Yen. First, thank you, Craig, for all those research. I know it's hard. Even though I researched and found some of the Vietnamese literature related to that, but it's still hard because what they're talking about, like you said, was too long ago. Plus the fact that only what remains are the two mentioned commentaries that Master Tang Hoi wrote. And he mentioned a little bit of his meditation teaching there, but it's not the full teachings that he's written in other books that he wrote. But unfortunately, those books are lost during the occupation by the Chinese over like 1,000-year period. So those are lost. And we know those books because there are some other authors reading other books around that time frame that mention those books that Master Tang Ho wrote. I hope probably those books are his recording of whatever his real detailed teaching. But from whatever we have right now, and Craig, you'll be able to extract those detail out to put together practice. I think that's really good. If you go back to the book, reading at the appendix, you can see there are some other literatures that Master Tang Ho wrote, and because they are lost. In terms of the maps, I think it's a similar situation, depends on which time frame they put the map at. And also because of the history, some of the maps were recorded by Chinese and they destroyed all other maps. So it shows mostly Chinese territory. So we have probably among the practitioner, especially in the Vietnamese Zen, I think these material are not commonly known among all the Vietnamese Buddhists. Only the one who practice this Zen tradition, they kind of propagate down these type of materials. Others practicing like Pure Land or others, they probably not aware of this kind of material. So most of them still thinking that the main route was from the Sixth Patriarch to go through the north of China. Only through this kind of material we know that were another route coming much earlier into Vietnam. John Bái Ngạo.
Craig, uh, Elena Bawanin, could you kind of elaborate a little bit on how the unwholesome factors can be sort of ameliorated or minimized with the practice of the wholesome factors? Could you elaborate a little bit on that process?
No. Well, so I mean, all I really know is what they talked about in the book, and they didn't really go into a lot of detail. So, for instance, craving and desire was countered by single-pointed mind. So, I mean, I think it's almost kind of commonsensical. So, craving, single-pointed mind would allow you to understand what is the source of that craving, and to understand it is to, get to the root of it, and it no longer is then a craving because you can understand it and deal with it appropriately, as opposed to an unexamined thing. Hatred and anger countered by happiness. So similar to how you can't be angry at somebody when you're also wishing metta upon them. Sleepiness, they said countered by initial thought. I'm not quite sure what they mean there, other than sleepiness. If initial thought is like you generate excitement about it. I mean, and there are, I think, a lot of different ways you can do that. But asking questions and then looking into something and answering the questions. I think there are a lot of like study techniques that can do that for you. Agitation and regret countered by joy or bliss. I don't know. I think joy and bliss can counter a lot of things. Agitation and regret. I think that other things would also work toward that end. Single-pointed mind. I mean, generates wisdom, and so all of that can undermine any type of these negative emotions that you might have. Doubt, it's countered by subsequent discursive thought. That one, I think, I mean, for me, like doubt about my abilities to do this talk, of which I had quite a few, was eventually countered by the fact that I went through the material and I felt comfortable enough that that I could do adequate justice to the material. So the subsequent discursive thought was by actually exploring it and being comfortable with what I wanted to say and feeling that I had adequate competence for that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there's my initial thoughts on how to deal with those things. But in all cases, just all of these things, we have so much stuff inside of us that roils up in the form of emotion that we don't really know where it's coming from. And my rule of thumb is, when you feel it coming up, it's actually an excellent indicator of what's going on. You have this emotion. I mean, you don't know all of the thoughts going on. Everything comes out of this big mass of these seeds that are lying down in you. So looking at when they arise, that is a good cue to look at it. Where is that coming from? So I think that is true for all of these things, all of these unwholesome hindrances will work.
John Bang Yin again. I think the state of mind, there are a lot of process going on at the same time. So to document the process down, it's hard to document, all these going on. So they have to do in sequence. The same thing like the breathing technique, when you're breathing long, you were breathing long. When you're breathing short, they have to put them in sequence down on paper. But, when we practice, anything could be coming at any time. So the way I draw the analogy of the mental state is that we have a bowl and we have 5 color glass pebbles putting in the bowl representing the 5 hindrances. Okay, and when we start practicing, say we have a bowl of, say, white color representing our awareness. So we can put a pebble of awareness in and pull one of the pebbles, say it's drowsiness. So one awareness coming in, one of the pebble of the drowsiness coming out. And during my meditation process, it's kind of like that. The more pebbles of awareness you put into the bowl, it's going to push out some of others hindrances pebbles out. And sometimes it puts more of like doubt. When you practice frequent enough, you start having more belief in the practice. So you put the awareness pebbles in and then it push a bunch of. So likely that those pebbles about doubt, drowsiness, what the other factor? The other factor is a restlessness. So it push a combination of those pebbles out. It's not necessary in that sequence, not all the pebbles in this group going out first. So in our mental process, it's like that. As more of the pebble of awareness coming in, we start pushing those out. And at the end, probably you have a few left of each, whether attachment, detachment, restlessness, but you are really focused because the goal mostly now are awareness pebbles. And then when those awareness pebbles be able to push all other 5 hindrances pebble out, you are in a totally concentrated state. And then from that state, you start moving on. I would say that we have like a transparent, clear pebble, which is represent our really wisdom. It start moving in and replace those awareness pebble. And at the end, when we start moving up, is where we build the wisdom. That is my way of drawing an analogy how our meditation process and our brain works. Jumping out.
Thank you, John. I think Sandra, you have your hand raised. Do you want to share?
Yeah, so thank you both. I'm more simple-minded, but I see this exercise as kind of like a recipe for if you want to work on this unwholesome state. This is the things that you can do in order to devote your attention to and concentrate on that particular unwholesome state. But I see them more as habit energies. So just watering the seeds, if we continue to, I'll give a great example, the savoring walk, where whatever it is, whether it's a walk, a bike ride, walking down the hallway at work, but just having an intention of only focusing on things that bring you joy, that exercise in and of itself is a way of helping to alter your habit energies and, create, knowing that you can create joy in an instant without, waiting for it to kind of drop it from the sky into your lap. Sandra, bowing out.
Ruth, you're muted.
I know I'm having trouble unmuting myself today. I wonder if that's a sign. Yes, and thank you to each of you. And I'm going to kind of tag in on what Sandra was saying. The habit energy of these hindrances and all the defilements and unwholesome mental formations that come into our lives, and they are habit energies. They're how we've been automatically responding for our entire lives. And as always, I'm going to jump into neuroscience. That habit energy comes from the frequent use of certain neural pathways in our brain. And the more we use them, the deeper they become. And just as a rut in the road, when they get deep, things fall into them. So this idea of finding the antidotes, which is what Craig so wonderfully spelled out, were the antidotes for these different defilements or hindrances or unwholesome mental formations, by merely practicing them. It's kind of a fake it till you make it thing. By merely practicing them, we really are changing our minds. We really are changing our brains, and reconstructing neuro pathways, or totally creating new ones that we may never have even practiced. So just the very deliberate the recognition of, oh, here comes anger. Hello, anger. I see you, but I'm not going to entertain you. I am going to find calm abiding. I'm going to find compassion. I'm going to find loving kindness, and I'm going to focus here. And it really can be a fake it till you make it thing, which in the end will become our habit energy, and that would be a beautiful thing. And I want to say, Craig, I loved actually very much liked the counter, the antidote to sleepiness being that vitaka, being that initial thought. That just really rang a bell, and I'm going to make an analogy with the bell. Our Theravadan monk here, in a talk I had with him this past week, we were talking about vitaka and vichara, the immediate thought and the discursive thought. And he said it's like ringing a bell. That immediate thought is the inviting of the bell, and that initial sound of the stick coming into contact with the bell, and that will wake you up. That will disperse the sleepiness. And then the discursive thinking, the vichara, as it's our vikara, is the sustained ringing of the bell, and just tuning into listening to the vibrations of that bell and listening to the quality of it as it fades away. And that's the discursive, which does bring us into that single pointed focus, because it pulls our attention in. But so that was a beautiful, I liked that very much, as that being a counter to sleepiness. That really, like I said, that rang a bell. It really, I can imagine that bell ringing, and it would definitely be a wake up. So thank you. Thank you all for that. So Ruth bowing out.
Yeah, thank you.
Fapland bowing in real quick. I just wanted to say to Ruth, thank you for that, because I was struggling away with that concept of the initial thought and the discursive thought and trying to understand that. Now I got it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Teo.
Hello, everyone. Teo bowing in. Thank you, Craig, John, Sandra, and Ruth for your comments as well. I want to say how we deal with the sleepiness in Miami is a good shot of Cuban coffee. What I did want to add in reference to your comments, Ruth, of the neural pathways and how, you know, our brains are malleable and they change, and we can create new ones and new habit energies. We've heard the phrase before, use it or lose it, which means if you have a skill, if you don't use that skill, let's say piano playing, right? You have a skill, and it's usually what we equate it to the skill of a piano playing or playing basketball. If you're not using these skills, if you're not continuously doing them, well, you lose those skills. Well, the good news is, use it or lose it, that also serves for the flip side. If you have a habit energy that you are not using anymore, you start to lose it. So that's the flip side of that, and it works just the same. There's no difference in how that works. It's neural pathways and the skills and the habit energies that we have developed. If we cease to use them, they will eventually disperse and go away. And in the and faking it till you make it, I love that phrase, and I will say that you're not really faking it. You're really doing it. Even I believe that even if it's the physical action, so you really are doing it. You're not faking it. You're committing to the physical action of, let's say, an example would be, it's really hard to be sad if your chest is up and your chin is up. You're doing this, and then this automatically begins to transform what's happening on the interior. I think fake it till you make it means change your posture, change what you're thinking, change something. And that is actually not fake, but it's very real as well.
Yes, Bobby.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Craig, for your presentation. I always enjoy listening to you speak. You're always so thorough and insightful. So I knew I would enjoy this, and I did. I just want to pick up on one small detail you said about suka, meaning having to have a good axle hole, because I learned years ago that dukkha comes from a cart where the axle, the wheels are wobbling. And so that's the literal translation. And so now if you get this good axle hole, your wheel isn't going to wobble and you're going to have a much smoother ride. And so I really appreciated hearing that other side. I've heard monks say, you know, there's two ways to nirvana, dukkha or sukha. And when I hear sukha, I've always thought of sugar, but I was a little bit off. So thanks for that.
So just a quick time check. We're about 5 after the hour, so maybe just one or two more sharing.
Quick
Conrad?
bang in, John. In
John.
addition to the good axle, I'd say you need also a round wheel, because the wheel first invented was square and doesn't work very well. So you need to be balanced middle way.
There's Fapland bounding in for another quickie. But when talking about fake it till you make it, the way I look at that is, and I love the way Teo framed that, but I always think of it's not faking it, as you said, but it's setting that intention. You know, it's like, hello, anger. Oh, you know, here you are. And now I'm going to cultivate, you know, compassion or loving kindness. So you may not feel that inside at that moment, but you're setting that intention. So that's good enough for me, most of the time.
So Jeff bowing in just briefly. So I like the Teo, your comments on fake it till you make it. It's really kind of practice. I mean, and you know, changing your posture and things like that. You know, Thich Nhat Hanh points to this with one saying. You know, sometimes your happiness is the source of your smile, and sometimes your smile is the source of your happiness. So by doing the practice, you can change gradually how you are until you really make it. One other just brief comment is kind of a fine point, but it struck me with a little touch of aversion, was the mention of I think it was all perceptions are wrong, and I guess that sounds almost you know, I know it's probably a translation issue and you can't get the full meaning. To me, I guess I would think all perceptions are incomplete. You know, some may truly be further from some objective truth, but perhaps all perceptions are incomplete. They may be more true, but perhaps not everything. Maybe not the essence of what you're perceiving. So I just thought I would mention that, just a little thing that stuck with me, that a bit of a fine point, but helps me to accept that part of the teaching.